Okay, welcome to another video. So today is the official release date of Zorin 16 and its Pro version, with the Lite and Education versions released I think in the coming months. So the guys over at Zorin were nice enough to send me a copy of the Pro version, which is what we're going to be checking out today. For those of you who might be a little bit unfamiliar, Zorin is an Ubuntu based distribution that uses a modified GNOME desktop for its core and pro versions. So some of the new features of Zorin OS 16 include a visual refresh with a new and improved default theme, new dynamic wallpapers that will change throughout the day depending on the time, better and smoother performance over previous versions. We've got a new welcome tour to get you used to your new desktop and distribution, multi-touch touchpad gestures, flat hub integration, and you can even easily sideload Windows apps, which is quite interesting. I'll show you how that all works. It's got a new sound recorder application, an improved taskbar, a redesigned Zorin appearance, and a new Windows 11-like desktop layout, which is exclusive to the Pro versions, which we'll check out today, and a whole lot more. So the ISO size for the Pro version weighs in at just under 5 gig, and the core version should be considerably smaller. So with that out of the way, we are going to be installing this natively, but for those of you who do like to skip the installation parts of these videos, there is of course a timestamp down below which will take you straight to the installed desktop. So with that being said, there is an option for NVIDIA users in the boot menu of the ISO. So what we're going to go ahead and do is press install Zorin OS. First up, we're going to choose our keyboard layout, which for me is English UK, and then we have a little box just beneath it to make sure it's all working, and then we can go to the next step. So for updates and other software, I'm going to be doing the normal installation as we are using the Pro version, so I'll have a whole load of other tools and applications included out of the box. But if you want to slim things down a bit, we also have the option of a minimal install. Now for other options, I'm going to leave download updates while installing Zorin OS. I'm also going to install third-party software, but we do have the option here to not participate in the census. So I do like that that's built into the installer and you can make your choice and then keep it moving. I'm going to choose not to participate in the census and continue. Now for installation type, this is how we're going to choose to set up our drive for the installation. So we've got a couple of options. We can do erase disk and install Zorin OS and let the installer take care of everything for us and create our partitions. Or if we had something else in mind, maybe with different file system or different partitions, we can go ahead into something else and set it all up manually. We're going to do an erase disk and install Zorin OS and see how it creates the partitions for us. So to select drive, we're going to go for the Samsung SSD 860 and press install now. So that's going to give us two partitions, one for our ESP and then our root partition formatted in ext4 file system. It does create you a swap file of around about 2 GB. So let's continue to the next step. Where are you? London is about right, and continue. Okay, user account time. So we're just going to call it Tyler and we're going to call our computer just Zorin, type in our password and confirm it. And we are going to log in automatically, but we are going to check out the new login screen anyway. And of course we could also use Active Directory and continue. So that's everything. I'm going to pause the video here and then we'll come back once it's finished. And there we go. Installation has complete and it took around about 10 minutes or so on my machine. With that being said, let's reboot and check out our freshly installed Zorin OS 16 Pro. Okay, and here we are. Everything's looking very nice, but we'll go through all of that in just a moment. First up, we have the new tour to run through to get us used to the desktop and distribution. So let's go ahead and press Start Tour and see what it gives us. So open the menu to launch apps. So by default, we're going to have an application launcher to the left side of our panel. Next. Choose your desktop look with Zorin appearance, and of course as we're using the Pro version we'll have a few more different sort of desktop layouts to choose from, but we'll go into that in just a moment. We'll leave it on the default for now. Next, connect your online account. So I'm not too worried about that, but if you was to use something like Nextcloud or Google, you can go ahead and set up your online accounts and it will sync it with all of your accounts for like your email and also your file manager for things like Drive, online drive space, etc. Next. Okay, link your phone and computer with Zorin, and this will let you sort of share notifications and things like that. I'll tell you what, let's go ahead and set this up. I do have an Android already, so it will only work with Android phones. So connect your computer with your mobile device, sync your phone's notifications with your computer, browse photos from your phone, reply to SMS messages, share files and web links between devices, and use your phone as a remote control for your computer. So let's press next. So that should go ahead and open up the Zorin Connect application. And now we're going to search for devices and see if it finds my phone, which is on the same network. I think we'll probably need to use KDE Connect though, which I don't have installed on my phone, so bear me a second and I'll just quickly sort it out. Okay, we're back. We have just installed KDE Connect on our Android phone, which means we can now sync it with our computer. So let's press Galaxy S9. So the device is unpaired. You may configure this device before pairing, and here's all the things that you can do. So it's really quite a cool application. So I'm just going to leave it on the defaults and press pair, and it will try and sort of get a confirmation on the mobile. So let's just quickly open that up. Pairing request. I'm just going to enable it on my phone by pressing accept. And there we go. So we are all accepted. We're getting a no storage locations configured, but we won't worry about that for now. So now we can share notifications, SMS, and all of that good stuff from our phone with our Zorin desktop. Very cool. So let's close that off and keep it moving. Next, so launch software. We'll go into the sort of software management and new applications in just a moment, because there's really quite a lot of cool things that Zorin OS have done on Zorin OS 16 to make installing new applications from different sources a whole lot easier, especially for a new user. So we'll press next for now. So Office Suite for work. So we do have the LibreOffice suite of applications installed out of the box, but if we wanted to use an alternative, we have the option there to choose only Office. Now they do make a point of saying both are compatible with Microsoft Office documents, again making things a bit more welcoming to Windows Microsoft Office users. I'm a LibreOffice user, so I'm going to leave it on the default and press next. And that's it, we are done and we can start enjoying our Zorin OS. So we've just done a quick reboot, but just before that I went ahead and installed HTOP so we can see how much RAM we're using on a fresh boot before we make any changes to our system. So we'll give it a couple of seconds just to find its bearing and drop down a little bit, but it looks like it's going to hover around the 900 to 950 MB mark on a fresh boot, which isn't too bad when you consider this is of course a Pro edition with loads of pre-installed applications and tools to get you up and running, and they do of course offer a light version with the XFCE desktop if you want something a bit slimmer. And then just beneath that we can see we do have a swap file of 2 GB. Now the kernel version that Zorin OS 16 ships with is 5.11.0-27, and if we go into the about section here we can see that the default windowing system that Zorin OS uses is X11. Now with all of that out of the way, I think the best thing for us to do is start with the default look and feel of the desktop before we go into the different layouts and new features of Zorin OS 16, as this is the first thing anyone who installs Zorin OS 16 is going to interact with. So out of the box, I really do like the way it looks. So of course we have the nice fresh new wallpapers that are dynamic. So if you look at the thumbnail of this video, which was taken earlier, you can see that it's a different kind of color shading for the background there. I do quite like this one though. So by default you can have a single panel layout with your panel at the very bottom of your screen, set up kind of similar to what you'd get from the GNOME extension of -2 panel, and I quite like how they've implemented everything here, even down to the light theme. I'm usually not a huge fan of light themes, but I think they've done a very good job here, and of course they do also have the dark theme as well. And we can see that the panel is slightly transparent, but all of that can be customized by going into the taskbar settings, which we'll do in just a moment. So at the very left we have our application launcher of a Zorin menu, a very nice and simple to use application launcher with our categories to the left, and of course clicking on any of those categories will then populate a list of the applications that belong with that category. We then have our user account and some of our home folders, and then quick links to software, settings and Zorin appearance. And on the bottom row we have our search bar, so we can search for any application, hit enter, and then that will of course launch that application for you, and they have their own very nice Zorin start page there with the Google search. And then we also have sort of quick action buttons like log out, shut down, etc. Now I think that they've missed a trick here. So by default when you press your left super key it will open up the overview mode instead of the application launcher, and I think it works fine in this desktop layout, but there's another desktop layout where I think they should probably have had the default action be the actual application menu, and I'll show you why in just a moment. So by default left super is of course going to open up your old style of the GNOME overview. So this is before the whole switch to GNOME 40. So for those of you who didn't quite like the switch to GNOME 40, you've still got the kind of traditional GNOME overview on Zorin OS 16 with your search bar at the top and then your workspaces at the right hand side of your screen. And this button here will do the exact same thing and get you into your overview. We then have our favorited applications, which are Firefox, Files and Software. And let's open up our Files Manager and see what it looks like with the nice light theme. See, I really do like that, and I even like the icon theme for the folders here. Now you'll notice that by default we have all of our action title buttons like minimize, close and maximize. And on the default layout that we're currently on, they're all going to be on the right side. I mention that now because when we go through the different desktop layouts, it's going to change corresponding with the desktop layout you are on. So if you're on a macOS inspired kind of desktop layout, all of these buttons will then shift to your left hand side of your screen. But they make it very easy to manually change that as well if you're very used to it being in one position, which I'll show you in just a moment. We then have all of our empty space here, and then at the very right hand side of the screen we have our sort of notification center, which would usually be in your top panel in the middle on a GNOME desktop. And then we have our sort of power button where we can get to our volume control, and if it was on a laptop you'd also find your brightness slider here as well. And then there we can see the mobile devices. So we've just used Zorin Connect to connect our Android phone, so we can get to them from the mobile devices here as well. Now with a right click on the actual panel itself, we can jump straight to a system monitor, files, settings, Zorin appearance, lock taskbar and taskbar settings, which we're going to go into right now. So they've done a very good job at making this as much customizable as you would want, all from within just a right click and then jumping straight into the settings. So we've got 4 sort of sections here of style, position, behavior and action. And in style you can change things like your panel size, so you could drop it all the way down if you'd like, or leave it on a default 48. Now of course the different desktop layouts will have their own kind of setup for those sorts of things, but we'll leave it on the default for now. And then just beneath that we have the panel IntelliHide, which is actually quite cool. So it does something that I didn't expect when I first checked this out. So when you enable this, it's going to change the actual shape and kind of look and feel of your panel entirely. So as you can see, it no longer stretches to the very edges of each side of the screen. So it's got some nice rounded corners, a little bit like Deepin. And you can see it's floating ever so slightly off the top of the bottom of our screen. And of course, anytime a window interacts with it, it's got a very nice and smooth animation, disappearing and then reappearing again. And then we can of course override the panel theme background opacity. Now position, quite self-explanatory. We can move it to any part of our screen, and we can also choose to display on all monitors if you're like me and have a multi-monitor sort of setup. And then not only can we change the position of the panel itself, we can also change the position of elements inside the panel. So for example, our task list here, if we wanted to, we could have that directly in the middle, but we can also use the desktop layouts will have those sort of settings, so we don't really need to mess around with that too much. And again, we'll go into the different desktop layouts very soon. And in behavior, very sort of self-explanatory. If you didn't want to show your favorited applications or running applications, you've got all of those toggles right here. And then we have action. So in action, we can change the sort of click action as well as the scroll action. And then we also have the super hotkeys. So if we wanted to go straight into Firefox, we'd hold super, press 1, and then that would launch Firefox. And I think it goes from 1 to 9. There we go. So it goes from 0 to 9. So anything in that list, so files for example, would be super and 2. It's just a very quick and easy way to navigate around your desktop and launch applications, especially once you've kind of memorized exactly what position they are on your task manager or your task list. And one more thing I'll show you in the behavior. By default, we have show Windows preview on hover, which means you can very easily get a quick preview of the application just by hovering your cursor over it and then seeing what's going on in that application's window. So very cool. So let's close that off. Now before we go into Zorin appearance and check out the different desktop layouts, let's see, with a right click on your desktop you can see we've got new folder and new document, because we do have full kind of desktop icon support. And we can also go straight into the change backgrounds, and here is where you can see that we have the different sort of scheduled coloring for the different dynamic wallpapers. Now let's close that off, and if we go into the display settings, you'll notice that we now have fractional scaling as well. Now we're going to go to one of my favorite features of Zorin OS 16, which is of course the different desktop layouts in Zorin appearance. So if we open up our overview and just type in Zorin, we've got Zorin Connect, and then we have Zorin appearance. So as you can see, we have a load of different layouts here on the Pro version. So we're currently on the default, and it will give you a preview of each sort of desktop layout and how it's going to change. So as you can see in the next one along, not too much is really going to change here, apart from the size of the panel is going to be shrunken a little, and we aren't going to have just icon only task lists. We're also going to see the sort of applications title in sort of a full length bar. So for example, let's switch over, and then there you go. So we've got the full kind of tooltip for the actual application there. And again, the application menu I do believe is the same, and so is everything happening in the right hand side. Next up, we have a different kind of layout with all of your sort of favorited applications in the center part of your panel now, and it's also changed the application menu. So as you can see, the icon's different, because instead of the Zorin menu, it's now going to open up the full screen overview sort of application dash that you will be used to on GNOME. And of course we can now just drag and drop these in any sort of position and folders we might like. And there's a whole lot of applications included in this Pro Edition, which we'll spend a bit of time on going through in just a moment. We have the same position for our overview button there, and then again everything that we saw on the right hand side is still exactly where we left it. Next up we have one that appears to be kind of a classic GNOME kind of layout, so we're going to have no kind of dock or running applications on our actual desktop here. So to get to our sort of favorite or our dash, we're going to press the left super key, and it's going to be on the left where you'd usually expect it to be on an older GNOME style desktop, with your workspaces still there on the right hand side. And then of course we now have the traditional GNOME top panel with our notifications centered in the middle. And again, everything that you'd expect on the right hand side is in the same position as before, only it's now at the top of the screen and not the bottom. Next up we have what appears to be a macOS kind of theme. Now watch what these buttons do when we change it, because they're going to go to the left hand side of the window. So let's go over to the macOS style. And there we go. As you can see, the action buttons for close and minimize are now on the left hand side of the applications window itself. So it's still giving us a top panel. However, this button here isn't an application launcher. It's just kind of like a one-stop place to get to all of your home directories as well as your user account. And then again, we have the same options for the software settings and Zorin appearance, as well as the logout buttons that were in the sort of full Zorin menu. That's kind of just sort of split it in half and just remove the applications if you like. And then my favorite part about this layout is the actual dock itself. So it's very nice and rounded, and again it's slightly raised from the bottom of our screen and does just look very nice. And before we change it, let's go onto the theme and see what this looks like with the dark theme. Nice, I like that. And if we full screen an application, I don't think we can full screen that one. Let's open up our file manager with the nice dark theme, and we're currently using the blue accent color. You can see there's quite a few there. We'll check out some of the others in just a moment. Now if we full screen it, you can see that our dock at the bottom there has disappeared automatically, and now if we just restore that to its normal size, there is our dock once more. Let's close that off, and now what we're going to do is go back into the light theme. We'll spend a bit of time in the dark theme in just a moment. However, we've still got some layouts that we need to check out. And then next up is the new exclusive one for this Pro version, which is the Windows 11 style desktop layout, which I've not really checked out too much. So this is kind of going to be my first time properly seeing how this one works. So again, it's going to put all of your applications or your favorited applications as well as your running applications in the middle of your panel now. So that's dead center. All of your sort of options for your notifications and power are all on the right. And now our our application launcher is at the beginning with our overview button right there. Now, one thing that I mentioned at the beginning where I think they probably missed a trick here is because the actual left super keys function doesn't seem to change depending on what desktop layout you're on. When we press left super, it's still going to go straight into the GNOME overview. Now, I haven't used Windows in a long time, but I'm going to imagine most Windows users that might be coming over to Zorin OS are kind of going to be used to just hitting the left super key and opening up their start menu, as opposed to opening up the GNOME menu, the GNOME overview. Not really a big complaint whatsoever, just something that I think a little change there might make it a tiny bit more welcoming to a Windows user. But what is cool about Zorin OS and Zorin OS Appearance, the package, is that they've made it very easy to change the behavior of this button anyway. So if we go over to an interface, you can see that we've got the option here of left super key. So by default it's on the activities overview, but we can change it to the Zorin menu, and then we have the Zorin menu, which is set up to mimic the Windows 11 start menu. So it's a full kind of application spread and a list, and it will stop once all of your applications have run out. We have a search bar at the top with our user account and our power, and it will give you a little bit of a shading shadow on the first row of applications, letting you know there's more applications to go. And let's just have a look at what a full screen application looks like now that we are in this theme. Not too bad at all. And let's just quickly check out this layout in the dark theme, and then we'll see what other layouts we've got and then check out some other things. I definitely think I do prefer the dark theme, you know. Yeah, I definitely prefer the dark theme. I do really like the light theme, but I'm more of a dark theme kind of guy, and I think the shading of the dark theme is very nice. But like I said, we'll go into the theming in just a moment. So I think we've got a couple more layouts to check out. So one of my old favorites was the sort of Unity-esque kind of layout. So as you can see in the preview, it's going to give you a left-hand panel sort of spanning the whole sort of edge to edge of your left side of your monitor, and it's also going to give you a top bar. So let's go ahead and enable that now. So positioning of our action title buttons appears to be still on the right, and now all of our sort of favorited applications and running applications are here on the left, and now we have the full sort of GNOME overview applications to show all applications, and again we have the button to access it right there. Notifications are still in the center, and then all of the sort of options again are still on the right. Let's see what this looks like with a full screen application. Not too bad. And let's just quickly check the Unity theme, the Unity layout in the dark theme. Yeah, definitely prefer the dark theme, but I'd be happy with either, and I'd probably not be too annoyed about having it on the sort of sunrise to sunset, because I think both themes are actually very nice. So let's just change our theme back once more for the last time, and now we have the very sort of final desktop layout, so it doesn't look too different from this one here. So again, it's going to shrink our panel size at the bottom, but this time it's going to give us a smaller application menu. So let's have a look. Okay, interesting. So again, it's kind of splitting the Zorin menu, and this time it's got all of your categories here, and then pressing a category again will then show the applications inside that category. Okay, not too bad whatsoever. So I think I'm going to leave it on the default layout for now, but all layouts are very nice. I think my favorites are probably actually the macOS layout. The Windows 11 layout's good, and I do also like the Unity layout. Now we've got a few more sections in Zorin Appearance before we close that off and move on. So theme, we checked it out ever so slightly. So we have different accent colors. So your accent colors are going to be things like this in sort of application windows. So that blue is an accent color. And you'll notice certain parts of your menu might also change when you enable a different accent color. So for example, one that will make it quite prominent and easy to see will be this red. So now that we've enabled that, of course, your red color on there has changed. And as you can see, the actual menu items for your application launcher and your overview have changed slightly, as well as the font color as well. Now back on the default accent color of blue, let's check out the different theming options. So of course we can manually select which theme we want to be on, but we also have this option here. So we can either have it at manual at a set interval, so say we wanted it to be light at this time and then dark at that time, but you can also do it from sunrise to sunset. So then depending on sort of when the sun rises and sunsets, it will change from the light to dark themes, which is a very cool thing. I usually just have it on manual though, but I think for the rest of the video we'll leave it on the light theme just for now. And of course in other, here's where you can change things like your icons and all of that good stuff. Now there's a few things here as well in interface. So title bar buttons, as you can see by default, it's going to be on the right hand side of your screen. But like I said before, that's a really cool thing to have. So say if you are someone who's very used to having your buttons on just the right hand side of the screen and your mouse sort of automatically always goes there when you want to close something, but you really like the macOS layout, you can mix and match and you can have it in the macOS layout, but then still have these on the right hand side if that's what you prefer. So very cool. And then we have enable animation. So pretty much self-explanatory. The GNOME desktop of course utilizes a lot of kind of animations and things like that, and you can just disable them entirely to then get straight to things without waiting for animations to end. I don't mind an animation, I usually just slow them down ever so slightly. And then next up we have the new jelly mode, which is now in Zorin OS 16. So if you remember wobbly windows, whenever you'd move a window like so, it would give you like a wobbly kind of effect. Zorin OS has now introduced their own effect, which is called jelly mode. So with it enabled, as you can see, the window is now sort of bouncing around in a jelly effect kind of fashion. Little thing like that, but pretty cool for those of you that like those sort of desktop effects. And then again, very self-explanatory, activities overview hot corner. You've probably heard me say 100 times in previous videos, I don't really like hot corners, so it's cool that it's disabled by default. But for those of you who do like it, it's super simple stuff. We can just go ahead and enable that and then just throw our mouse to the top left side of our screen, and then that will give you a sort of GNOME overview for your activities. Now you might notice that for some reason we've still got these applications in the background here. During my testing I did notice this happen, so the reason why that I think that it is, that I've pinpointed it, because we've in quick succession changed all of the desktop layouts in one go without no logouts or sort of log back ins during any of it, it sort of does that little thing there. So all we need to do is log in, log out, log back in, and it'll be back to normal. So we'll quickly do that now, and then we'll carry on through the rest of Zorin Appearance. But while we do that, that gives us the perfect opportunity to check out the new login screen you're going to get with Zorin OS 16. So you have the Zorin branding down at the bottom, and of course we've got now a transparent effect on the actual login screen itself, so you can see parts of your wallpaper beneath your login screen, and it does look very nice. Okay, now that we've logged back in, let's just make sure that that issue is no longer present. There we go. So like I said, that will probably only ever happen when you change your desktop layout loads and loads, and it sort of just takes a second or two to get back to it. So a quick way to just get rid of that entirely is to log out and then log back in. Nothing too major there anyway. And then we can jump straight into the taskbar settings from here as well. So you can kind of think of Zorin Appearance as your one-stop place to really customize the look and feel of your desktop without needing to download additional applications like GNOME tweaks, etc. We then have a desktop. So like I said, we have full sort of desktop icon support. I'm not a huge fan of desktop icons, but if you were, you can very easily just go ahead and enable them like so. So let's just remove them. And then last but not least, we have fonts. A very nice clear font selection. We're using Interregular, Sans Regular, then JetBrains Mono, and then again Inter Bold for our legacy window titles. So I think what we'll do now is we'll spend just a couple of minutes going over the default applications we do have on Zorin OS 16 Pro, and we'll also check out the new sound recorder app which is included in Zorin OS 16. So we're going to use our application menu to do this. So in accessories we have Barrier, Break Timer, Clocks, Files, which is of course Nautilus. We have Kuha, which is a very simple desktop sort of cast to record your desktop. Maps, Password Save, Text Editor, To Do and Weather. Then in games we have Solitaire, Mahjong, Mines, Quadrupuzzle, Sudoku, and then we have graphics. There's quite a lot of applications here for graphics, which is very cool. So we have Blender, Color Picker, Darktable, FreeCAD, GIMP, which is my preferred image editor, so it's nice to see that's installed out of the box, saving me some time. We have our image viewer, Inkscape, Critter, LibreCAD, LibreOffice Draw, and that's going to have the full sort of LibreOffice suite of applications. OpenToons for 2D animation, photos, and Inscribus, which is a page layout and sort of publication application. Next up, we have Office. So we have Calendar, Contacts, and then we have my favorite desktop email client when using the GNOME desktop. Integrates very well with GNOME online accounts, and that is Evolution. And then we have Foliate, which is an application to view your ebooks. Homebank, and then we have the full LibreOffice suite, and let's just quickly open that up to make sure it's all set up with automatic spell checking with our dictionary of choice. So let's just type in any old rubbish, and there you go, you can see this automatically checking our spelling as we go. Perfect. Now let's see what else we've got. So I think that's everything in Office. No, we have Minder and then Journal++, and then we have sound and video, and again you're going to find a whole lot here in the sort of pro versions. So we have Ardor 6, we have Audacity, Blanket, Brasero, Cheese for webcams, Handbrake to sort of transcode video files and DVDs, Kdenlive, which is my, again, video editor of choice, so that's going to save me some time when it comes to edit this video. Mix, OBS Studio, PitV is another video editor. Rhythmbox is a music player. It's not my favourite music player, but it does the job, I suppose, when you're on GNOME. We have the sound recorder, which is the new application of this release, videos, and then my favourite media player of all, VLC. And then before we go through the rest of them, let's check out the sound recorder application. And there we go. So a very clean and simple interface. We have the record button here, and then we have some options here as well. So we can change the format, audio channel, and then check the keyboard shortcuts. So super simple stuff. We just press record and let that record a few sort of snippets of audio, and then we'd stop it. So we have the option there to name it, and then once we've named it, we can play it back, or we can bin it, or we can choose to sort of save it in our file manager. What we're going to do is just go ahead and bin that for now, and then of course if we've done that by accident and got there quick enough, we can then go ahead and undo that process. So that's pretty much everything in sound and video. We now have system tools. So here you're going to find things like disks, settings, software. We're going to spend a bit of time on software because they've done some cool things with sort of package management and different sort of packaging formats. We then have VirtualBox installed out of the box, which is very cool to see. And then of course Zorin Appearance and Connect. And then last but not least, we have our utilities. So we have backups, which is going to be Deja Duck, which is a very nice, simple and easy to use backup tool, which can do things over like network folders and all of that good stuff. And you can schedule it to sort of do it whenever you want. Very easy to use application for backing up files. Let's see what else we've got in utilities. Okay, not too much there. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to spend a bit of time talking about how it's set up all the different packaging formats and application sort of ways of doing things. Now, Zorin OS 16 have gone above and beyond to support pretty much all of the packaging formats that you could think of. For example, a lot of the applications that we just went through aren't native applications at all. They're actually Flatpak. So if you type in Flatpak list, you'll notice we have a whole lot of applications installed as a Flatpak, so things like Kden Live. But you'll also notice we have all of the Zorin theming there as well from their own repo for Flatpaks, which is very cool. And then we have full FlatHub integration, and that works for your software center as well. And we'll go through that in just a moment. Now, although it doesn't have any snaps installed out of the box, it does have Snapd up and running and ready to go. So I think what we'll do is we'll open up the software center and let's go shopping. So already you should probably notice some applications here that you wouldn't usually find as a native package in the Ubuntu repositories, one of those being ungoogled Chromium. So if we scroll down to source, as you can see in the source there, we have flathub.org. So if you wanted to install any Flatpaks, you can go straight into your software center and do it all here in a nice GUI way without trying too hard and any manual sort of heavy lifting required. Now for applications, it doesn't just end there. So they've done something quite interesting with the way it's going to help you install Windows applications. Now, like I said, I'm not really a Windows user, and one of the programs that I do remember using when I was on Windows is a program called CC Cleaner. Now, CC Cleaner is an application that sort of cleans sort of residual files that you don't need on your sort of installation. And there are a couple of alternative applications that do the same kind of thing on Linux, one of them being Stacer. Now, what's very cool about the way they've done this is that not only it's going to help you install your Windows applications, but it's going to give you alternatives. So watch this. We're going to go ahead and press start the download, and we're going to use open with install Windows application, which is the default selection. So again, very simple to set up for a new user. And now, as you can see, it's opened up a new window here which says Stacer can be installed from software. Stacer is an alternative to CC Cleaner. So what Zorin OS have done is they've sort of made a big database of all sort of applications that they know and what they can offer recommendations for, and then they'll do that for a new user. So CC Cleaner is an unknown Windows app. Your computer and personal data may be vulnerable to a breach when running apps from unknown sources. Some Windows apps may not be compatible with Windows app support. So we've got a couple of options here. We can choose the alternative, which is Stacer, which is probably what you should do. But as we're doing this in the video to show you how it works, we're going to go ahead and choose install Windows app support. Now that's going to go through the process of sort of setting up Wine and getting everything you need to do that. And now, as you can see, after a password prompt and the initial setting up of Wine, it's gone ahead and actually shown us the Windows installer for CC Cleaner, which I have absolutely no use for, but I thought it was a very cool feature worth showing you on video. So let's go ahead and close that and keep it moving. Now that'll also work for things like Windows games, and I do believe in the Zorin OS documentation it shows it working with the Overwatch.exe and actually offering to install Lutris, which is very cool. Now, one more thing with sort of different application formats is the app image support. So if we go ahead and just grab a very simple app image of Etcher, we can see the default options that it gives us. Oh, where have we gone? There it is. So as you can see, by default, it's going to say open with install Linux application. And then what that's going to do is give you, again, a very similar warning before choosing to launch that application. So let's minimize that now. So as you can see, again, we've got a warning letting you know it's an unknown package and your computer and personal data may be vulnerable to a breach when running apps from unknown sources. This time we can either just cancel it off completely or go ahead and just click run anyway, and then that will very simply launch the app image for you without any issues whatsoever. So I'm a massive fan of the sort of efforts that they've gone through for all of the different package formatting, making things very simple for a new user to just install the applications they want to use regardless of the format it's packaged in. Very cool. Now moving over to the laptop to show you the multi-touch touchpad gestures on Zorin OS 16. It's going to use a combination of pinches and swipes, so a 3-finger pinch will get you straight into your overview without any hesitation whatsoever, and then using 4 fingers to swipe up or down, you can then navigate to new workspaces like so. All very fluid and smooth with one-to-one tracking, so it'll follow pretty much exactly the motion that your fingers are going in. So a couple of small little new features and improvements in this version before we wrap up with our final thoughts of Zorin OS 16. So it has a new Photos app for simpler photo management. Here we can go to Photos, Albums and Favorites. And now with our file manager in Nautilus, we have the option to star certain files, for easier retrieval later on, so we can just jump straight into starred now, and then everything that we've given the star to will then appear in this starred category in our file manager. And now we also have the option with the Wi-Fi hotspots to display a QR code for easy connecting, which is very cool. So I think that is where I'm going to wrap up with my final look of Zorin OS 16, this time featuring the Pro Edition. All in all though, I've really enjoyed it. I think the guys over at Zorin OS have done a brilliant job bringing a nice new distribution that I'd be happy to recommend to most users, but especially those coming from either Windows or macOS with those kind of inspired desktop layouts. It should help make them feel a whole lot more at home a lot quicker than other distributions. Now, some of my favourite standout features of this release are probably the multi-touch touchpad gestures. Ever since they've sort of been trickling into the Linux distributions, I couldn't really use my laptop without them. It just makes it a whole lot more funner and fluid moving around your desktop when you do have nice one-to-one touchpad gestures. And one thing that I do think is very cool that's included in this release is the actual way that they've made sort of side-loading Windows applications a lot easier and transparent, especially for those coming from Windows, just to know how things work, set it up in a nice GUI way without too much heavy lifting on the user's side. And of course, Zorin Appearance Package is a brilliant little package to help you really change the way your desktop look and feels, especially with the pre-configured desktop layouts. Now, there's been a lot of Ubuntu based distributions coming out as of late, and I think Zorin OS 16 sits somewhere near the top of that pile. Anyways, thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, please subscribe, and if you've really enjoyed it, you can support me on Patreon. Also, join the Discord, there's a link in the description below, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye.